And we're joined now by Robert Smullen. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Congress?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm Robert Smullen. I'm currently in the New York State Assembly. I represent the 118th Assembly District, which is the Mohawk Valley, Fulton, Hamilton, Herkimer, part of Montgomery, part of Oneida counties, all within the 21st Congressional District. And I am from Gloversville. That's my hometown. That's where I was born and raised. Went off to college, and I joined the Marine Corps. I took Naval ROTC, and I ended up joining the Marine Corps and began my Marine Corps service just as Desert Shield and Desert Storm was kicking off. That took me through 24 years of military service all around the world, 3 combat tours in Afghanistan. I served up in the Hindu Kush Mountains in the eastern part of Afghanistan. I was awarded the Bronze Star and the Combat Action Ribbon during that tour of duty. In between then, I'd met my wife. We had a total of 4 children in between all of the deployments. And we finally decided to retire in 2015 after 24 years of service in the Marine Corps. After that, we decided to come home. And then when this job opened up in the Assembly, I ran. I was successful, and I was elected in 2018 and then reelected 3 times in 2020, 2022, and 2024, all unopposed to represent our people in the Assembly.
Of the 4 candidates running in the primaries, the Democratic and Republican, you're the only one with political experience, any political experience.
That's right.
Does that matter?
I think it matters a lot. You know, right now I serve, take for instance the committees that I serve on. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. We just passed a $260 billion budget in New York State. What I call money that we don't have for things that we don't need. Well, I actually know where every penny of that money comes from and where it goes to. I think that counts in this. Additionally, I'm on the ranking member of the Higher Education Committee. I look after the SUNY schools all around New York State. I know the district very well, and I've learned all those things all at the same time where I've been legislating. And I've been what I think is a very faithful representative of the people. In the Marine Corps, we call it Semper Fidelis, always faithful. I take my role very seriously.
What are you hearing from voters around the district? What are the most pressing issues?
Yeah, so it is massive. It's 15 counties. I've been out listening, I've been out talking to people, and in fact, I've been to every county. 12 of the 15 counties, the GOP committees have all endorsed me for this race. Every committee that's done an endorsement vote has endorsed me. And here's what I'm hearing, is that people are really fed up with affordability issues. And that comes from bad policies by the Democrats in Albany, which I've seen real live in person in Albany, but also energy policies that can be fixed at the federal level. There's a Federal Energy Choice Act that I'll be voting for almost immediately when it's brought out for a vote next year in Congress. And I've worked very closely with economic development issues all around this district, whether it's the Mohawk Valley, whether it's the Northern Regional Economic Development Council. I know what the issues are, and I know what to do to help from day one.
Cost of living seems to be top of the list for many people these days, as you mentioned. Healthcare, childcare, housing, energy costs. Gas prices have gone up, especially in recent months. What do you see that you would be able to do in Congress, in D.C., to help bring those costs down?
Well, the first thing to do is unleash American energy. There's actually a fracking ban in New York State. It's absolutely ludicrous. Our neighbors in Pennsylvania sell New York State natural gas that we actually have here in the state. The second thing I do is get the pipelines going so we can bring it to market. There's some bottlenecks that have been put into place that are deliberate. You know, these things are all the result of the Climate Leadership and the Community Protection Act of 2019, which I voted against. We need to roll back some of the provisions. We just killed the electric school bus mandate after several years of effort. These are the things that I can work on at the federal level to make sure that the federal laws are able to make up for some of the bad things that are happening in New York State.
Do you fully support President Trump's agenda?
So I support the America First agenda. In fact, many of the ideas that are in my Upstate First agenda are complementary to that. But make no mistake, I was a United States Marine. I have my own ideas and my own beliefs and my own values, and I represent the vast majority of the people of this district. I've proven it in the Assembly, I'll prove it again in Congress, that I can represent all of the people of this district with common sense policies that they favor and be able to make this place a better place.
Immigration. $70 billion immigration bill passed by the Senate, heading to the House now. Do you support that fully and all the full funding for ICE and Border Patrol?
So I would support making sure that we provide funding that keeps our borders secure. We have one of the largest, longest borders in New York State. And in fact, if I were to go to Congress, I would become part of the Northern Border Caucus, which actually keeps track of these policies and acts when it needs to be. I would make sure that the border remains closed, that no traffickers of any illegal drugs or people are allowed to be brought into the United States, and to make sure that within New York State, and I was opposed and I voted against the actual sanctuary state policies that the Democrats voted on in the budget this past week, which is no cooperation with federal law enforcement. I disagree with those policies. I respectfully think that all law enforcement should cooperate to make sure that all the laws of the United States, federal, state, and local, are actually implemented and upheld.
And here in the 21st District, is the northern border secure, or do there need to be more steps taken there?
There can always be improvements made when it comes to border security. The borders between the northern border with our friends in Canada is very different than the southern border and the border with Mexico. And I actually have an appreciation. I've been to numerous border crossings, and I understand not only that, but the technology that's actually keeping the border secure. And we're going to be smart about it and cost effective.
Immigration. A lot of farms here in the 21st District rely on migrant labor.
That's right.
You've said that you think there need to be some changes made so that farmers can have the year-round workers.
That's right. A lot of the H-2A immigrant programs are for seasonal things, where you come and pick a crop and then move back or go back to your home country. In the dairy industry, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So I think it would be appropriate to have some policies in place that would aid our dairy farmers. It's tough, hard work, and it's got to get done because no farms, no food. We need to feed our people. We need to make sure that New York's dairy industry remains competitive on a regional and on a national basis and on an international basis with our friends in Canada.
You mentioned friends in Canada. A number of Canadians have been angry with the United States.
A lot of Americans have been angry with Canada.
How do you resolve that, especially here in the northern part of the 21st District? Thousands of jobs depend on trade between New York, Ontario, Quebec. Trade is so important. How do you keep the trade strong and yet resolve some of the issues that have come up between Canada and the U.S.?
Yeah, I think the dialogue is very important with our friends in Canada. There are some serious issues of fair and free trade between the United States and Canada that need to be worked out. But what I pledge is to be part of that Northern Border Caucus, to be part of the solution, to be part of the dialogue, to make sure that it's fair to both the United States and to Canada, so we can have good cross-border trade, good advanced manufacturing jobs right here in the United States in partnership with our Canadian friends. I think that makes good sense.
You believe you know the issues more so than your opponent, Mr. Constantino?
I absolutely do. You know, when it comes to issues of public policy, I've been there and I've done that. Whether it's in Washington, D.C., working at the Pentagon, whether it's being appointed as a White House Fellow, even being appointed by President Trump to the President's Commission on White House Fellows in his first administration. So when it comes to things of policy, I'm a public servant, and I'm going to take the same servant leadership attitude into Congress. I'm here to serve the people. I'm here to represent all of the people. I don't think my opponent brings any of that to the table.
You have said you don't believe your opponent is fit to serve. What do you mean by that?
No, I don't. You know, in fact, he has called me a decorated Marine, and I'm no hero. I did my job in the Marine Corps. I went to Afghanistan 3 times, but he has called me an effing coward. I think that's completely unacceptable. Every veteran that hears that deserves an apology because it's simply not true. I received the Bronze Star. I received the Combat Action Ribbon. In fact, when I retired from the Marine Corps, I was awarded the Legion of Merit, which is a very high award that shows that I served honorably in the Marine Corps. I'm no coward when it comes to it. But more importantly, he sent me a threatening text saying that I was evil, that something had to be done to stop me because I would be, evil for America. I think that's utterly ridiculous. My entire life has been spent serving my country, and I'm very proud of that. But last thing, his team has actually decided to impugn my son's memory by saying that I was using my dead son as a political prop. I think that's completely inappropriate. I think it's beyond the pale. My wife and I lost our son 2 years ago to a tragic traffic accident. My son donated life. I've met my son's heart recipient who carries his beating heart in her chest, and those remarks are completely inappropriate, and I find him to be unfit to serve.
Let me ask you one thing that has come up during the campaign. Back in 2018, You got applied for a couple of tax exemptions on properties, veterans tax exemptions, credits, and you applied for 2 of them instead of just 1. You say that was an honest mistake, that it was a paperwork mistake. He's made quite a point about that.
He's actually made categorically false and defamatory statements about it. And they're simply not true. In the 2018, when I first ran for assembly, my political opponent got a law enforcement person that he knew to put a claim in, a charge, that was then sent to the Democrat district attorney in Schenectady County. And it wasn't adjudicated until after the primary was over, after the general election was over, after I had won decisively in the primary, after I had won decisively in the general election, and it was sent back to town court for disposition as a violation, essentially a traffic ticket sort of thing. So, that was the upshot of all that. And now it's back again sort of thing. But the voters weren't fooled by it then, and they're not being fooled by it now.
Were you surprised that he received the endorsement from President Trump?
I was certainly disappointed by it, but I wasn't surprised. When you're trying to buy an election, when you spend millions of dollars, when you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants, nothing surprises me.
Do you think the president's endorsement and the endorsement from other top MAGA supporters will win him votes and potentially win him this primary?
It could, but I think more importantly is that I've got support on the ground in 15 counties from real people. And I'm particularly proud of the 12 GOP committees that endorsed. But more importantly, the state Conservative Party and all of the conservative committees in the 21st Congressional District, they all went out, knocked on doors, got me almost 1,000 signatures. I'll be on the ballot in November, no matter what. I have the conservative line. I am in this race in November. I want to win this race completely in June 23rd for the Republican line. But look at some of the other people that have endorsed me. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association have endorsed me. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, America's premier business organization, has endorsed me. The New York State Troopers PBA, law enforcement, has endorsed me.
And let me ask you about that. You're saying you plan to be on the ballot November regardless of whether you win this primary or not?
I'm going to win this. Let me be clear. I'm going to win this primary for the Republicans on June 23rd.
If Republicans do go with him, will you still run as the Conservative Party candidate in November?
Well, I'm not conceding that I'm going to lose this primary in any scenario. We're ahead. We think we are ahead. We know we're ahead. And I'm going to win the primary on June 23rd.
Mr. Smullen, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks, Tom.